We're back with Arkansas Republican Senator Tom Cotton. Senator, it looks like they're moving towards a deal. If a deal is passed, what can you do to stop it?
Well, we've been in this position before. In early April, they said they had an agreement in principle, but there was never a text to which they agreed. So we don't know if there's going to be a final agreement this weekend or not. But I think the United States has gone way too far down the road of making concessions to Iran. We have to remember the goal of these negotiations from the beginning. It was to stop Iran from enriching uranium and developing nuclear weapons capability. The UN Security Council has said repeatedly that they have no right to enrich uranium. That's been United States policy for 40 years. And the president has repeatedly granted them more concessions to let them enrich uranium. Now we're talking about what kind of access we're going to have to inspect their military sites, or whether they're going to get tens or hundreds of billions of dollars in a signing bonus. So I think whatever deal comes out of this weekend, it's going to be dangerous for the United States and dangerous for the world.
So we've gone from trying to prevent the nuclear program to just kind of trying to
yes,
ban it.
The clear goal, as the president himself stated, was to stop Iran from developing nuclear weapons capability, not to manage it, not to limit it for a certain period of time, but to stop them from developing it.
So you've taken the position that if the United States just ratcheted up sanctions, walked away from a bad deal, ratcheted up sanctions, that Iran would buckle and come to the table with more favorable terms. What about an alternative explanation, which a lot of experts believe, which is that they would say, forget negotiations, we're going to race towards a breakout on a nuclear bomb? What do you do in that case?
Well, it really raises the fundamental question about the credible threat of military force. The president has said repeatedly over the years that the threat of force is on the table. Just last week, in a hearing at the Armed Services Committee, the incoming chairman of the Joint Chiefs says the United States military has the ability to destroy Iran's nuclear facilities. That's not the first choice. That's not the preferred choice. But it has to be a choice that is credible for the Iranians to actually reach the goal that we had hoped, which is giving up their nuclear weapons capabilities.
The president said he would move if he saw Iran moving towards a breakout. Do you take him at his word?
Well, the real question is whether the Iranians take him at his word. I'm afraid they don't, because they've seen time and time again that the window for diplomacy with this president and this administration never ends. You're not really negotiating if you're not willing to walk away from the table. You are only giving more and more concessions, teaching the Iranians a very bad lesson. That's why I think we should have walked away from the table a long time ago and pressed the pause button to get back to that original goal of stopping Iran from developing any nuclear weapons capability.
Do you think this administration has helped elevate Iran's stature, in the globe by engaging in these kind of negotiations?
Well, unfortunately, Iran is an outlaw regime. They're anti-American, they're terrorist sponsoring. Just 2 days ago, the supposedly moderate president of Iran, the kind of people that the administration hopes to empower, was in the streets chanting death to America while people were burning American flags and burning Israeli flags. Iran is destabilizing the Middle East, in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Yemen. They continue to be the world's worst sponsor of state terrorism. And by engaging in these negotiations, by granting these concessions to Iran, by not demanding, for instance, that Iran release immediately the 4 hostages that Iran holds who are American citizens, this administration has elevated Iran's role in the region, and the president has even said that he would be happy to see Iran play a role of a very successful regional power.
Well, and the Iranians are saying, let's get past this negotiation so we can join with the United States in fighting ISIS. Don't we have common interests there? And if we do, could you ever see the United States at least working in parallel with Iran?
Well, in fact, Iran is part of the problem with the Islamic State. And the president's desire to retrench entirely from the Middle East helped create the conditions for the Islamic State to arise. The president's own deputy director of the CIA said the precursor of the Islamic State, al-Qaeda in Iraq, was defeated in 2011. But because we withdrew all of our troops, because the president did not lead in Syria, al-Qaeda in Iraq had a chance to regroup and have the space and the time in Iraq and Syria to become the Islamic State. And now the president's commitment to a nuclear deal with Iran has tied our hands in Iraq, because we want to placate the Shiite central government without working with the Sunnis in Anbar province and the Kurds in the north. And we don't want to take any action in Syria, where Bashar al-Assad is the main client of Iran.